Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd really appreciate it, and I'd be able to send watches like this to your inbox as soon as tomorrow morning. And if you like the watch, you can buy it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Buy, trade, and sell luxury watches on thewatchbox.com. So this timepiece is a lot of watch, literally and figuratively. 2015 model year debut, that was the most recent year of the Portugieser at IWC. This is the Portugieser Tourbillon Mystere, reference 5046-01 in platinum. A timepiece 44.2 millimeters in diameter on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. We may even have to back out the camera a little bit to see this one in proportion and have proper perspective. So a big watch, but that's always been the way with the Portuguese or Portugieser, depending on your terminology preference. The watch was originally created as an oversized wrist-borne vessel for a pocket watch movement in 1939, the idea being to maximize accuracy while still having a wristwatch format. Well, today you still have a pocket watch-sized caliber in a wristwatch, only you have a pocket watch-sized tourbillon caliber with retrograde date and 7-day power reserve in this example. So 44.2 millimeters, that's not including the crown, and on a 16 centimeter circumference wrist, I'd say we're approaching the limit of wearability. I'd say don't go below 15 centimeters circumference to maximize the appearance of handsome proportion, though I do believe that as small as about 14.5 to 14, the watch might sit comfortably. That said, it's not thick. It has a sloped case flank and a dramatically domed and box section sapphire, so 15.1 millimeters thick. From lug to lug, this one's 52.4, but it does have a notable ergonomic quality in that the lugs are rather short and dramatically downturned. That's almost 90 degrees from the horizontal of the case band, so IWC does go out of its way to make the watch sit comfortably and securely. The lug spacing here is broad, 22 millimeters, so it doesn't have a tendency to torque on the wrist. Broad straps and big watches go together naturally, and because it is a standard spacing 22, you'll have plenty of OEM and aftermarket accessories should you wish to mix it up with other straps. The strap that you're given is a substantial Italian-made IWC Santoni piece. Italian leather specialist Santoni with their signature signal orange underneath, a large rectangular scale semi-gloss black alligator leather, modestly bolstered, folded edges in a monotone stitch. You can see that it's paired with a matching IWC platinum buckle, full depoyant clasp, blasted and polished inside, satin finished and polished externally, handsome and substantial, so that if you do prefer to wear your watches relatively loose, and some folks do, you can count on that heavy clasp on the bottom to counterbalance the watch so it doesn't move around. A lot of watches that are big and heavy but have a small or insubstantial clasp have a tendency to try to hula hoop or porpoise. This has none of that. Now, of course, the case shape does help. You have those short cropped lugs and you have a flat case back. Between them, they hug the wrist and they avoid the creation of any pressure points or hot spots. The lugs are simple but strong. The Portugieser created during the late 1930s. It features some elements of Art Deco design. So much like the far smaller Patek Philippe Calatrava 96, back then known simply as the 96, it features a blended lug profile. It's all satin on the flank to break up the mass of metal, and I do appreciate the concave profiling of the case back so that when the watch is on the wrist, it winds up looking a lot flatter and thinner than 15 millimeters. The hoods of the lugs are both compound curved and polished. I say compound curved because they tumble down and they also tumble outwards, as they're roughly higher at center than they are at the outer edge, so they fall away to the side. You'll note the same technique is employed on the bezel, which, like the caseback, is concave to visually pair the mass of the watch and give it a greater measure of elegance. There's also a contrasting finish, as the case band is satin and the bezel itself is in high polish. You'll note that the satin finish between the lugs on both sides is vertical satin finish because the motion of the strap, as they are wont to do, can occasionally create scuffing that's vertical. Therefore, you have that vertical striation of the satin finish to try to hide those marks. You'll also note that the lugs are drilled close to the case and semi-curved spring bars are used, so you can pull that strap straight down around a small wrist with no constraint against the flank of the case. Now, the bezel is minimalist, and it basically disappears when you watch from head on. This watch is all about the dial, and you'll note that the sapphire is wonderfully vintage evocative. It is very tall. It's a box section sapphire, the better to evoke the plexiglass that would have been placed on an original IWC Portuguese. Let's give ourselves a bit more light and examine this dial in detail. You may have noted that the tourbillon started beating in the course of handling the watch for the video. I wanted you to get a look at the tourbillon stationary at the beginning because oftentimes you get more detail that way, but it is fun, even hypnotic, to watch a tourbillon regulator come to life. Of course, the watch with a 7-day power reserve, it started up because it's automatic winding. More on that in a moment, but I can also say that the caliber 51900 is a pleasure to wind. It feels superb. There's just enough detent to the ratchet that you can feel a gritty mechanical quality inherent in the mechanism, but without any coarseness. It's still smooth enough to feel luxury. 7-day power reserve indicator as well, with a double scale and a red fill for the last day of reserve. Retrograde style date. Of course, the watch does feature a quick set, and it's kind of fun to operate the quick set on a retrograde because you can show off for your friends, like so. Subscale hands are heat blued and steel. Center hands, like the indices and the numerals themselves, in white gold. The hands are leaf or foy style, as they have always been on the Portuguese, and the indices are outboard of Arabic numerals applied, not stamped, as they have always been on the Portuguese model. I should say they have always been Arabic numerals stamped on more affordable models, applied as here on the upscale models. You'll also note that the dial base itself is metallic silver, but it's not a sunburst. It's an opaline or frosted finish that glows warmly without exploding like a sunburst does. You'll note there's a railroad or piano key scale for the retrograding date, and there's also a railroad outboard uniting all of the indices, another time-tested and time-honored Portuguese styling element. Let's see how close we can get now and try to maintain focus, because I want to show you the tourbillon in detail. Okay, so the tourbillon is a mysterious tourbillon, hence Tourbillon Mystere as the name of the watch, because it's a flying tourbillon. There is no upper bridge. Inside its polished aperture, you have a tri-spoke tourbillon carriage. It beats away at 19,800 vibrations per hour. So a bit of a quirky beat rate that most will associate with the old IWC 85 and 8500 series automatics or 1500 series Rolex calibers. Rarely seen today. It's actually a nice thing that the escapement beats relatively slowly because you get a better view of its hypnotic dance. You will note that it features shock protection via ink block, making it one of the few tourbillon regulators that does feature shock protection on its balance staff. What you can't quite see is the overcoil hairspring, and the watch is regulated in 5 positions. Historically, in a pocket watch, which would pretty much just sit in one orientation with respect to gravity, the tourbillon would spin and equalize the vertical effect of gravity on the timing of the watch, slower and then faster, evening out the fact that the hairspring did not have a perfect center of gravity. The problem is, in a wristwatch that will move every which way, the tourbillon doesn't make quite as much sense as a equalizer vis-a-vis gravity. So an overcoil hairspring is used that better centers the mass of the hairspring for concentric beating, and thus the watch can be adjusted in 5 positions with respect to gravity and deliver the kind of tourbillon accuracy you would have associated with a pocket watch tourbillon, albeit in a wristwatch format. Now, the reverse side of the watch, you can see this is caliber 51900, is clearly based, let's see if we can focus in there, clearly based on IWC's 50,000 series automatic movement. So the movement itself is over 36 millimeters in diameter. I mentioned that you were getting a pocket watch sized caliber. I did not lie. What you're also getting is a remarkable combination of IWC manufacturer watchmaking past and present. The winding system, and you can see the double white ceramic pawls in the pawl wheel. The winding system features modern materials in ceramics, so it operates unlubricated, and an ancient system developed by mid-20th century IWC watchmaker Albert Peloton, a highly shock-resistant bidirectional winding system known as the Peloton winding system. 7-day power reserve, that quirky 19,800 vibration per hour beat rate. You can see a 44 joule movement with gorgeous oversized dressage or graining on the wheels. True heat blued screws. You have both polished and blued screws on this watch, and they are true kiln fired oxidized blued screws, not chemically dyed. enormous, oversized, and skeletonized winding rotor, and 30 meters water resistant, though I recommend not testing the theory. This is a handsome watch. This is a substantial watch. As I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of watch, figuratively and literally. With an original retail price of $121,000, this watch doesn't mess around. Now, that said, it's a luxury watch, and luxury watches are all about fun. So while the watch doesn't mess around, I heartily encourage you to mess around with this watch and make it your own on our website.